Welcome, everybody. The first ever episode of Tiff4Tat. I am Tiffany Devlin-Drye. I'm a principal consultant at Pierce, Washington, and this is Tat.
Hi, I'm Tat. I'm an application architect in Pierce, Washington. So Tiffany, what are we doing here?
Let's see, what are we doing here? So we both work at the same company, and I'm a nerd and you're a nerd. And I wanted to talk to you about nerd things. And our marketing girl said that we should record it if we're going to talk to each other. So here we are.
That would be great. We will try, we will learn from each other. I think, so we do different things. So we face different things. I think it would be great for us to learn from each other
Yeah,
and share
definitely.
it.
Definitely looking forward to it. I only wish that we were in person with dim sum in front of us, but whatever. Here we are virtually. Okay, so let's see. Can you tell me about your background and how you ended up in the quote to cash space?
Oh, this is a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. Um, I was a structural engineer, before this life. So, I did that for 10 years. And then, in around 2000, toward the .com days, I switched career and I start working for a consulting company first, a high-tech consulting company. And then I end up in a software company. They were focusing on, more like in those days, everything is .com days, right? So everything is commerce. So the company focused on e-commerce online stores. I did that for around 10 years, and around 2000, 2009, 2008, I joined Pierce, Washington. And by chance, we end up, hooked up with, a company called Big Machines. That's a company that Oracle bought, and then it turned into CPQ. And I have been doing that for, over 13, 14 years now. So that's how I got started, and that was really by chance, but I find that, this is like a interesting line of work. And every company is different. So even though it's CPQ project, but every project is a little different. So it's kind of interesting that way.
So structural engineer to CPQ.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a change. But computer has always been in a tool for my work. So it's not that big a change. So Tiffany, I'm interested in how you end up in this the area of work as well. So tell me a little bit about how you got into CPQ.
Yeah, sure. So let's see. How far back do I want to go? I think I'm going to start at the beginning. So I was essentially just going through life. I was not career oriented, just taking it day by day, enjoying myself. At one point in my life, I went to beauty school and I got my cosmetology license and I did hair for a while, which was a lot of fun. I like making people pretty and making people feel beautiful and the artistic side of that for sure. Um, but one of the things during beauty school, I was always very interested in like the chemical reactions of the hair dye on the hair and what is actually happening when you curl someone's hair. Why does it stay like that? Or hair cutting, like how do I get the perfect angle in the haircut to make it do the thing that I want it to do? And so when life kind of started to get caught up with me and I realized that I was going to need to have money and a career to survive well and have a family, I decided to go back to school. And I Googled what is the highest paying bachelor's degree. And I went from the top of the list down until I found something that I was genuinely interested in. So, and I always had that thought, like I should apply that interest to science and technology and STEM, and other STEM areas to whatever my career is going to be, because that is highly remunerated. So the first thing on the list was petroleum engineering, which I was like, blah, no way.
In
Second thing was,
Texas, that's the hot thing.
I know in Texas, yes, I'm from Texas, everybody, but yeah, Texas, that was a big thing, but not for me. Um, and then next was aerospace engineering, which I thought was cool, but like also not quite me. Next was chemical engineering, which I was like, meh. And then number 4 was computer science. And I was like, okay, I'm into this. Um, for a while I was reselling iPhones and I would always open up the iPhone and like replace pieces and stuff. So I hadn't coded at all, but I was interested in it. So that's what I landed on. I went back to school. I got my computer science degree, and then my first job was at a friend's consulting firm, and I had no idea what he did. Turns out it was mainly a NetSuite shop. But he just asked me, hey, do you know how to code JavaScript? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, cool, do you want a job? And I'm like, yeah. And so that was my first job out of college, was at his consulting firm. But he did Salesforce projects for his NetSuite client. So, they focused on NetSuite, but if they weren't going to turn down projects, so if a Salesforce project popped up, he would do that too. So my first job was developing custom Aura components for a community cloud site on Salesforce. So that's how I got into Salesforce. And then CPQ is a whole other story, which, do you want to know it?
Yeah, sure. That's the key, right?
I know this is a very long-winded, I mean, we have time, right? So
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I think we should know. We should I like to know about it. So let's
yeah,
go.
okay. All right. So I'm, coding, love to code. And then one day my boss comes in, maybe 6 months after I was on the job. Um, my boss comes into the office and he goes, okay, we have a new Salesforce project for you. And I say, okay, great. And he goes, we've told them that you are the CPQ expert because what is a CPQ implementation? And I was like, okay. Okay. And he goes, all right, so at lunchtime, we're going to go. This is all before COVID. He goes, at lunchtime, we're going to walk over to their offices and we're going to do the kickoff meeting. And you're going to be there and you just smile and you say yes to everything they say. And when we come back to the office, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what they need and want and how to deliver it. And I was like, okay, great. So morning went by, lunchtime comes around. We're walking out the door, and I will never forget this moment. We're walking out the back stairs, and I look at him and I go, okay, can you just tell me what CPQ stands for before we get there in case it comes up? And then that was my first CPQ project. So we did the kickoff. We did the project, and at first I was like, this isn't code. I want to code. I don't want to point and click. I don't want to do configuration. So my plan was to get in, get out, and get on with it. But I don't know. Once I got into it, I started really studying CPQ and really learning it and really understanding what the business problems it was solving were. And I love math. I love math, and it's very math oriented. So I just slowly kind of fell in love with CPQ and decided to dedicate my career to the CPQ space.
That's very interesting because I mean from a stylist to to a CPQ, architect engineer. That's like that's a huge change. For me, it's not. I mean, I'm always in a technical field, so it's not too big a change. But that's really impressive that you can make the transition. I'm really impressed. So
Yeah. Thank you. I sometimes joke that I might be the only person on the planet with a cosmetology license and a computer science degree, but I'm happy to be wrong. I would happily connect with anybody else that has a cosmetology license and a computer science degree.
yeah, I encounter a lot of history major, doing computer science work. So yeah, I won't be surprised there are other ones, but there's other people from other career, doing yes, computer science. A lot of people, like they go to college for one degree, but they end up doing something else that they enjoy, So that's I think it's a great thing to see that happening. So
Yeah, yeah. I see that a lot in Salesforce too, for sure.
Tiffany, that's interesting that you transition from a stylist to to a programmer, I guess. So what different industries have you worked on since you've been doing CPQ?
Let's see. So lots of SaaS companies. That's the first couple of years was really focused on SaaS clients. And I think that, the Steelbrick package was really designed around that SaaS use case. So I think it's a really good fit for those companies. But more recently, I've been focusing on manufacturing clients, which has been a whole new world, a whole new way to use the tool. And, really, really fascinating. And at first glance, I was like, okay, well, manufacturing clients, you don't have proration, you don't have start dates, end dates, you don't have renewals, you don't have amendments. This is going to be easy. But it is not necessarily easy. Once you get into it, you have a lot of complex configuration. You have a lot of, it's totally different. You're building real things that are in the world, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just a click of the button, like, okay, now you have this license, or now you have access to this service. It's like a real thing that gets built. So there's a lot of things, a lot of complexities that can go on there where you have to plan to produce, for example. You have to plan, okay, when is this thing going to go on the production floor? You have all the shipping logistics. I'm sure that you have a lot of manufacturing use cases as well. I would love to hear about one of your manufacturing clients.
Yeah, when I first started, CPQ or even doing e-commerce, in those days, there's a lot of companies they want to automate, their process. Um, in fact, like at the beginning when I first started, most of my clients are from manufacturing. The one example is I had a client is a turbine manufacturer. That's all they do. They just manufacture turbines for
So what's a turbine? Let's
a
start there.
turbine is like in jet engine you could have the blades the area there's a whole science on designing the blade so that it will last a lot a long time. They could also use it in well in jet engines in power generating and engines and all that. So it's very complex and also very expensive. So I had one client that what they want to do is they want to basically quote an entire engine to the for the customer in in CPQ. So basically from before this when someone needed to quote something, they have to really contact the specialists. The salespeople they do not know all the details on on what could be fit together. So there's a few people, specialized people. They will know have the technical knowledge and also the sales background. So these are all people. They have been working on this these type of engine for, let's say, literally for 20, 30 years. And
Wow.
to train somebody who know to how to put this together is not easy. It takes years of training. So the company basically their goal is to say, hey, we all these rules are in somebody's head, and they are all they're all scientific, technical. Basically when you design something, only like you want to put a computer together, only certain things can will fit together. And so they want to say, okay, how can we automate this and put these rules in in a in a system that if that person retires or leaves, we don't have a gap in between to try to train somebody. So the
Classic
yeah, one of the project is
problem.
that I worked on is they they will configure the engine. They will based on the configuration, they want to generate a set of drawings and also diagrams, also all the technical documentation. We go with that. So in the end, the whole process will end up generating a document that's like 300-400 pages long.
Wow.
So before CPQ, it will take them literally months of going from component to component, and then also manually in Word to write up the document to to describe what they what the basically it's a specification for the for what they are assembling. So that usually takes months to build. And so look, just imagine just writing a 43 or 400 page document. It would take you weeks and months to write. And then they also have to considering all the technical component, the designs, and all that will come into a package. So they wanted CPQ to generate the document, even by the people who are, like the more, even salespeople, they can go in the system and pick and choose a component and then generate a document. So that was the idea to say, okay, how do we get, people who don't really truly understand the design of the turbine, and then come up with something that, that makes sense, and then forward that to a technical person to review it, to make sure that it's it can be presented, it can be built out the way that it's quoted. So that was a very interesting project because in those days, the first of all, that's like many years ago, I think, that project. And the configurator is not as flexible as it is today, and also the document generation is also not as flexible as today. So it's very a technical challenge to build that that project. So there's a lot of technical work, a lot of XSLs. The document generation script is all written in XSL. So that takes literally months to build, for just the document itself, so that was a very interesting project. And then the configurator itself is also complex, right? Because to assemble the jet engine or the turbine, there's a lot of components that you have to select to build that, and that configurator is also very complex. So at the beginning of my CP career, and a lot of my projects is focused on manufacturing, and then it kind of you have to take the expert knowledge from people's head and then interpret it and then put it in the configurator. And that is a lot of challenge. There's another company I work on is they make backup tape drives. That's also very it sounds pretty simple, right? Like for home computer, maybe a backup tape drive is very simple. It's one device. But this company, what they focus on is the
Wait, a backup tape drive?
yeah, it's for backup storage.
Oh, okay, okay.
So what they do is,
Is that like
they say if you want to, back up your data, then you want to automate that. So maybe you have the daily backup, a weekly backup, and then you want to be able to automate that so that no people don't need to intervene with the process. So what the company does is they make all the tape drives, or now they don't use tape anymore. In the old days, they use tape, and also hard drives to
okay.
back up the data. And they're the device is not simple, just one simple device. It's the size of those things are all like refrigerator size,
Oh my
and
gosh.
they could you can have as many tape. It's also automated. You can take a tape. Basically, there's a machine. Basically, you say, okay, Monday you do this. There's a script that they run every monthly cycle, weekly cycle, and then there's you can swap in and out of the tape or hard drive automatically. So there's like a automated device to pick up the drive, take it, and replace it, and then rotate it basically.
Okay, so
And
like a physical device
yeah,
are these tapes and okay,
yeah, you
okay.
can look at like a home machines. So that is a very interesting project because there's a lot of rules to say, okay, what fits with what, and then if when how do you want the tapes to be to rotate it, and what tape can fit in what frame. So there's a lot of rules that you need to understand, and then of course we don't know anything about tape drive, right? At least when I started, they know anything about tape drive. So
Yeah.
we have to all get that kind of knowledge from the experts, and then and then interpret that, and then basically build the rules in the configurator to come up with a valid configuration. That
Yeah.
was a very interesting project. I think at the beginning, a lot of my project was like that. It's a lot of manufacturing use cases.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's wild.
So, Tiffany, you said that you've been working on a lot of SaaS related projects. Can you tell me something? Some interesting use cases for those as well? Because I like in the recent days, the most most of my clients, have they're kind of related to SaaS. I think that's more the trend that a lot of more SaaS companies are interested in CPQ. I would
Yeah.
like to know a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most interesting part about a SaaS implementation is the element of time. So there's a lot of things that come into play when you start dealing with time that doesn't come into play with manufacturing, for example. So one is the start date and an end date of a subscription. So essentially, typically what I've seen is that it's SaaS, so software as a service, right? And that typically means that you have access to that piece of software for a particular piece of time, okay? So, and a lot of interesting things come about from that. So first is a start and an end date. But then what does that start and end date really mean, right? Like if you buy a subscription to something and you have access to it for a year, well, as a salesperson, you don't necessarily want to input the literal start date and the
Yeah,
literal end date. You want to put in the start date and then you want to say 12 months, 12 months from this date, right?
yeah,
Because salespeople, and we've done it both ways, right? But the way that I've seen it in Salesforce CPQ be the most successful is where they have a start date and then they enter the subscription term in terms of months. So that would be the salesperson's job, is to go in and put the start date, which is today or the first of next month or the first of next year, whatever it is. And then they enter the number 12 and then the system does the rest. Where I've seen it fail is where you expect a salesperson to put in the start date and then the end date, because there's a lot of complexities. For whatever reason, we as human beings have really complicated time.
yeah,
We leap years, for example. We have our months, okay? We have our months that some of them have 30 days in them, some of them have 31 days in them. Some of them February has 28, unless it's a leap year, it's 29. And it's just too much for a salesperson to think with, right? So if they're doing a 6-month subscription, if they're putting in the start date and the end date, then they have to think with, okay, is this 365 divided by 2, is it that many days or is it 6 months? And if it's the later 6 months of the year, then the customer is getting 2 or 3 extra days because of the size of the months, right?
yeah.
So
Most of the times, I think like you don't even know when the start date is, right? So you don't know the dates, but the duration you always know, right? If a customer wants a 3-year contract or 2-year contract, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
right. The other time, though, that you don't know the duration sometimes is with amendments. So amendments in a SaaS use case is they love your product so much. I always love to give positive examples. So let's say that they buy 3 licenses to your product for 12 months, and 2 months into their subscription, they call you up and they say, oh my gosh, we love your product so much, we want to add 5 more licenses. Well, okay, is it exactly 2 months getting exactly 10 months of service from that point, or is it 10 months and 3 days? And does the company even care? Does the company even care? It's called proration, right?
yeah,
I'm sure you've heard that word, but it's called proration precision. And that's what in the system makes the calculation go, okay, should we round this up to 10 months or down to 10 months? Or should we count the number of days? Or should we weight the number of days based on how many days in the month there are? So for example, if you're paying monthly, let's say you're paying $100 a month. If that month is February, well, you're paying $100 divided by 28, and that's your daily rate, right? But if your month is October and you're paying $100 for the month of October and you're dividing that by 31, then your daily rate is cheaper than it would be in the month of February. So all that to say, buy your subscriptions in October because you get a cheaper rate. Just kidding. But anyway, yeah, just back to the SaaS use case. I think that everything to me that makes SaaS interesting is the element of time and all the math that goes behind that element of time.
yeah. That's like at least in my last few projects, I always have to deal with, actually there are SaaS projects now. So there's one client I know that, I mean, they want us to always say, okay, what are start and end dates? They want us to tell them the date. But, during the sales cycle, a lot of times you don't even know the start date, because doing negotiation, you don't know it's going to be a 3 month negotiation or just like a month, right? So you can pick a start date, but that always change. And then even doing implementation, that it may get shift because you may not go live on the day that you say you're going to go live. So that's kind of interesting that I mean, I always find it hard to deal with dates. Duration is much simpler because you can always shift it once you know the start date. So that's, at least for me, that's like the way to go, when I talk to clients now, is say, okay, let's not talk about dates. You can talk about a start date, but it's just a start date. That's the
Yeah.
estimated start date, right? So
Yeah, that's right. And then the calculations for financial metrics are also all date time too, like MRR, monthly recurring revenue,
yeah,
our annual recurring revenue, ACV, annual contract value. And
yeah,
that means different things to every financial person.
right.
I've done however many SaaS implementations I've done, but every time I talk to the finance person, I say, okay, define for me, what does ACV mean? And they go, well, annual contract value. And I'm like, okay, but let's do the math together and see what that
Yeah.
actually means. And it blows my mind that it's different per company. And it's okay, right? Like every company cares about what that company cares about. But it's just funny to me to see a three letter acronym means something totally different for one company, and that same acronym can mean something totally different to another company.
Yeah, it's interesting that people don't realize that doing
Mm-hmm.
doing date calculations is very complex. Even though you say, oh, just add 3 months to it. Yeah, when you say it like that, it's simple. Like, why can't you just add three? Adding three, but the problem is adding three. What does three means, right? Is you have
Yeah.
you have to deal with the day in a number of days. Is 3 months doesn't mean the same number of days. It really depends on how what when you are. So
Yes.
that's I always find that very complex and very very challenging. It's much easier to calculate. Oh, like dollar and cents is much easier to calculate than dates. It's
So speaking of dollars and cents, Tat, I want to know what is the most complex pricing structure you have implemented in a CPQ project?
oh, pricing. Oh, it comes in all flavors. It's like everybody has different way of calculating price. And one surprising thing is when in a lot of CPQ project I go into, a lot of company use spreadsheet to do the quoting. It's surprising. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many clients that I face. Like I ask them, okay, where's your pricing data? They say they're all in a set of spreadsheets, and they're all in formulas that we have implemented so far. When we do a quote today, we use this spreadsheet to come up with the prices, because we either we don't have a system that have that information in there, or the system that we have is very restrictive, and then
Mm-hmm.
our pricing doesn't come that simple. So I have one client that basically everything, all the product, they don't have a lot of product. They have maybe like SKU, maybe 1,000 SKU. So it's not a lot, when it comes to quoting or e-commerce projects. That's a very small number of price of products, but all the pricing is in a spreadsheet in formulas. So they once they get the quote, they then basically the spreadsheet tells them, okay, here's the price that you're going to charge. I have one client, basically, that's where all the prices is. So when I ask them, can you simplify your price so that it comes into more, a typical scenario that I like to see is, okay, I have a list price, and the you know I, the salespeople can discount so much, or they will apply uplift. If it's cost based, then they'll apply uplift to the cost. Or if they have a list price, they will apply a discount to get to the price. and then they would, then you can set up the approval route for, to see what level approval they would need. That's the ideal scenario that I'd like to see. But in this case, they say we just there's just no way for us to go back to the Excel spreadsheet to to extract a list price, because they sell software. So basically, software is a little strange animal that there's really not a list price, right? Because they can charge different people different price.
Okay.
That's if they have a customer that can pay, the usage, is they have a very, large, the price is very expensive, they will charge them a higher price because the usage is different, so that's one thing that people don't know. Like Microsoft Excel has this a standard price, but if you say Microsoft Dynamic, it's not really, they can charge you different price because the way you use it could be different, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so they don't really have like a standardized list price. So, and then they based on volume or whatever, the price for that product may be different, So anyway, so this one project that we had, that we had to basically reverse engineer all the formulas and then implement it in CPQ. That is not a simple task when you say, they have been using this spreadsheet for, 10, 15 years. Now you have to basically, redo it in, 3 to 6 months, right? So fortunately, I mean, in that situation, we had, our framework, the PW framework that we had a set of, utility functions that can handle math functions. So basically, you can give it a formula and then give it a set of functions. You can say, okay, just run the logic, and then you'll spit out the a number for you, so that you can you can implement any formula you like. So that was a very very interesting project that we did, to say, okay, we kind of we engineer the formula from the Excel and then implement it. Now that's not a typical use case, right? A lot of times we have to integrate with, for example, if you have attribute-based pricing in in your ERP system, a lot of times we have to also implement the same logic in CPQ, because doing a real-time call is not feasible because performance reasons, or you may not have exactly all the data, but you have to repeat some of the calculations in in CPQ. So that's another flavor of complexity that you can face in CPQ projects. It's like either you implement the logic straight, or we implement the the logic in ERP. It's never a simple case like oh, just a simple a simple list price minus discount. Very seldom we get that ideal situation. Even in that case, you still have to there's always a factor say, oh, what about if I have pre-negotiated contract price for customer that's already set, and then sometimes you in that situation they will say, okay, if the customer already negotiated price, and then we also have our standard price, and then if the standard price is lower than the negotiated price, you have to give them the lower price. Basically, they don't want to buy off the contract anymore. So there's all that scenario that you have to take into account. So it's just a lot of different flavors that can come up in CPQ projects. So that is part of the interesting part of of doing a CPQ project, is is being able to quickly understand what the pricing schemes are, and then come up with a solution. And that is usually takes a little bit of work to to do, and then it sometimes takes a couple of iterations to get it right.
Yes, yes. Well, you hit on something that I love, and I love taking businesses out of Excel and into a robust system. Excel is a very powerful tool, but once you hit that limit of Excel, you hit the limit of Excel.
Yeah, people don't realize how many companies run on Excel. I mean, it is pretty amazing, that a lot of CPQ project that we go into is we are replacing Excel a lot of times.
Yeah, totally. Okay, Tat. Well, I think that that's all we have time for today. So thank you so much for your time and for chatting with me and nerding out. Um, our marketing person wanted me to say something, so let me find out what I'm supposed to say. Okay, here we go. PW is committed to delivering beyond quote to cash and transforming how companies connect to their customers. Reach out if you need assistance with that. How'd I do?
Good.